Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the INCOMPAS Ask the Executive program. I'm Chip Pickering, the CEO of INCOMPAS. In this video series, we will feature interviews with the leadership from the INCOMPAS Board of Directors and our member companies. Our members are the innovators and groundbreakers in the internet and competitive network sector. They're the broadband and fiber network builders, cloud companies, wireless and voice providers, streamers and social media companies are changing the way we work, learn, and communicate. They provide services to homes and businesses, as well as to critical schools, libraries, healthcare providers, and others on the front line. The first focus in this series will be managing through crisis. We'll hear from several speakers about their company's responses to the COVID-19 crisis and the challenges the pandemic is presenting for our industry and their customers. Our first conversation, which follows, will be with LaChance, co-founder and CEO of ZenFi Networks, and a member of the INCOMPAS Board of Directors. We hope you enjoy this series and look forward to your feedback and suggestions for future topics. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to joining you with a series and the interviews to follow. All the best.
LaChance. He's a great leader, not only for the association, but for the work that he's doing really at the heart of the COVID crisis in New York. ZenFi Networks provides tremendous connectivity, both in fiber, small cell, wired and wireless network infrastructure. And we're going to talk to him about what his mission is during this crisis, how is he responding, and the leadership lessons that he's learning during this time. And then as we go from crisis to recovery, what are things that we can all do as an industry to work together to build the broadband networks to reach every American, and hopefully to be prepared for the next crisis, wherever it may be. But also, as we go from this crisis to what I believe is a moment of transformation for the industry, where much more of the work that we do will be online, the education will be online, healthcare through telemedicine. This will be a tremendous period of time of innovation and deployment, and the networks are going to be critical as they have been in this crisis, but they'll be critical for the economic recovery and growth for our country. Ray, welcome. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to our conversation.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Chip. This is an interesting time, an opportunity to try a new medium for communication like this, and look forward to getting through the interview.
Well, Ray, you look much better than I do. I'm in my COVID at-home gear and suit today, but I'd love to ask first a kind of a family question. How's life at home and work at home and with your family?
Well, it's been interesting. Started out a little rocky. I've worked from home for many years. A good part, a good portion of every month, and so I'm used to working remote. What I wasn't used to, though, was having to also be an educator and teacher in a structured environment to teach my kids. So that came as a little bit of a shock, having an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old that need elementary school education support, and I realized how little I know about math and English in today's learning environment. So that was challenging at first. We solved that problem after a week, got that on autopilot. We're doing really, really great. But the other challenge was working at home every day and efficiently and effectively. I found out when we all started, everybody set up hour-long meetings to have 15-minute conversations and kind of block out an entire day. And we found that that was a little inefficient. So we got been using platforms like Zoom we use regularly, and some other platforms, and we found that we can really set up ad hoc meetings with people and little groups and do this dynamically rather than blocking out the whole day like you traditionally would, to make up for that walking by managing by walking around. You get in the office, and the FaceTime you get. We've mastered getting the water cooler talk with these ad hoc meetings using. We happen to heavily rely on Zoom right now for that. So it's been pretty interesting, and I think we're really getting the hang of it, and almost business as usual.
Well, first is family. It really is amazing. My parents are in their 80s. We're Zooming now, and it's given us new connections during the crisis, and with my sisters and children. So I think your experience is the common one around the country. Talk a little bit about your customers and ZenFi Networks. Tell us who you serve. Tell us more about the company and your mission and control as a leader during this time to serve the customers, and being at the heart and at the epicenter of the COVID crisis in New York. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Sure. Well, first, ZenFi is a communications infrastructure provider of fiber optic network, edge co-location, and wireless siting solutions, predominantly focused on the mobile network operator space. So if you think about that, it's space, power, connectivity underpinning the mobile network. So that's and it's our network is built throughout New York, in northern New Jersey and New York. We have about 11 to 1,200 route miles of what we consider front haul network. And that's the piece of the network that connects the antenna locations back to the edge colos, and then we backhaul the edge colos back to command and control for the mobile operators. So that's our core predominant business. Along with that, though, we have obviously a large fiber footprint in New York City and throughout the region that could be leveraged for a lot of other applications. So we do have a carrier wholesale and enterprise overlay business that leverages that fiber network. Many of the INCOMPAS members are also customers of ours. So we're really in the business of building underlying infrastructure for others to create value-added networks on top of. So how's our business impacting, or how's our business impacted? As a critical, we're considered certainly by the federal government and state of New York, critical infrastructure provider. Our network obviously gets put in place and leased. Fiber optic strands and cables are leased for many years. So we're not directly impacted by revenue hits. Our revenue, we'll sell a deal, install it over the next, month to 12 months, and then bill against it for the next 10 to 15 years. I mean, it's a pretty predictable business, but our core infrastructure is supporting others that need to provide the higher layer value-added services. So we've been asked during this crisis, we've had a couple things. We've committed to forbear on smaller companies that are connected to our network that needed support. We had a couple non-for-profits in the city of New York say, look, we're a museum. We don't have anybody coming to the museum. We're trying to save on costs. Can you forbear our rent for the next 3 months or 4 months? And we did it. And we've had a couple of those, mostly again, customers we're supporting as an underlying provider to a retailer that was selling lit services to them. So it's affected us somewhat, but I feel like it's been de minimis from that perspective. Interesting thing though that's happened for us is we're starting to see our customers, our mobile operator customers and our Wi-Fi operator customers are starting to realize that their networks need a lot more capacity in places that they didn't build before. They all built for the center city, right? They built for the Times Square, they built for Wall Street, but they didn't build for the far reaches of Queens and Brooklyn. And now we're hearing about opportunities that are coming up for building capacity in parts of the city we hadn't addressed before.
Now, do you serve or do the retail customers that you serve the educational institutions and healthcare institutions of the city?
We do. We have we wholesale to providers that provide those services predominantly. We do have a few direct customers with those that I would consider retail, but that's not the majority of our business. Majority of our business is a provider to other providers.
Well, how has your network functioned during the time, and what are you seeing on demand as far as the usage of your network?
So again, predominantly it's a fiber leasing and colo business. However, we do provide lit services. But I think the best metric that we have to look at is we provide underlying fiber optic connectivity for a citywide Wi-Fi network called Link NYC. This is a network that is fairly pervasive. It's in all 5 boroughs, and it provides free Wi-Fi for residents and visitors. And what we've seen there is a huge shift of where the network is being used. The core consumption of bandwidth on that network was traditionally in Manhattan, in the center of the city, between 3rd Avenue and 8th Avenue, below Central Park. That's where most of the utilization is. Now, of course, with everybody sheltering at home, it's moved to the far reaches of the network, and we're finding that there's clearly a huge reliance on that. That network is an important piece of the puzzle because there's a lack of broadband propagation in a lot of areas of New York, in what they call equity areas or lower income areas. And we're seeing a huge shift in bandwidth consumption out to these equity areas that would have no other coverage. I mean, they don't have in-home broadband in many of these places, and this is their alternative to in-home broadband. So it's we're seeing a shift to where the utilization is, but not necessarily less utilization.
Well, I want to thank ZenFi Networks for being the underlying network, the critical, indispensable network for New York City, especially what y'all have gone through over the last 2-3 weeks and continue to go through. So I think that the country, as we watch from other cities and other regions, we really do respect not only the heroes in healthcare, but the broadband infrastructure and the leadership that you provided and your company has provided to keep New York up and running, and for your families and others to be able to have the online education and access to healthcare and your business services is really critical at this time. So we do appreciate what ZenFi Networks, all your employees have done and are doing. Second, as we kind of go from the crisis to recovery, do you see opportunity for innovation and collaboration that can expand your footprint, your growth, or new applications in the future?
I certainly do, and one of the interesting things, as I mentioned, most networks that we work on, the commercial, the mobile operators and the web scale guys that are doing Wi-Fi, the focus had been traditionally on the center city. Again, I say the Times Square down to the Wall Street area, where there's a lot of commercial opportunity, a lot of visitors. However, since it started, we really started to identify the spots within equity areas, underserved areas within the city of New York and municipalities in New Jersey that there's a real lack of capacity near the home, a lot of capacity near the office, far less capacity near the home. And it's opened our eyes toward, we anticipated it, but we never anticipated it to the extent it's needed right now, because the capacity now far exceeds what we expected for the home environment. So we've had some calls from municipalities and city personnel saying, look, we have a hotspot here that needs more capacity. We need to, or a dead spot where we need more capacity. What can we do temporarily? So my team has been working day and night on some innovative fiber extension solutions to leverage our fiber network to get close and terminate circuits, for instance, within housing projects or at community centers or near hospitals so we can rapidly deploy additional capacity in those areas. We're doing working on some interesting things. We have a lot of support from vendors, a lot of support from a few of our customers on figuring out some urgent solutions to bring capacity to underserved areas that we know we thought were underserved. We didn't realize how underserved because of the new demand. And it clearly, we're putting a stake in the ground saying we're creating an expectation of where the level of support for those areas has to be in the future. So what's happening innovatively? We're developing new solutions, identifying problem spots, and we are setting a bar for where we need to be in the future. So we're going to, this crisis, identified a lot of, areas that need to be addressed. And, we'll be grateful for this in another couple of years because when it happens again, we'll be way more prepared, certainly on this front.
One of the, I think, awakenings for the country is how critical broadband is. And what you're talking about, when you have a crisis like this and everyone has to shift to at-home work or vacation, telemedicine and tele becomes critical to your as a link to your doctor or your nurse practitioner or to the clinic and hospital or the VA. I think that we'll have a real movement in Congress and through the administration. How do we have broadband for all, everywhere for everyone, both in funding and in specific areas, whether it is for E-rate or for telehealth and telemedicine, or for the universal service programs, the new reforms that are being called the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. But something that you and I have worked on very much with INCOMPAS and our other member companies is something we refer to as the deployment agenda. How do we streamline the permitting process, remove barriers, make sure that fees are reasonable? Can you talk a little bit about the importance of working with INCOMPAS? And as we go into the COVID legislation, recovery acts, and the stimulus part, or just meeting the crisis needs, can you say why working with INCOMPAS is important and things that, from your perspective, you'll need as a company going forward?
Sure. Well, clearly it's, let me characterize ourselves as I guess a mid-sized company. We're certainly a big player in our space, in our region, but we clearly don't have the resources, the experience and focus to do the things that you do and your team at INCOMPAS does to support the industry. The eyes and ears and advice and just general support that INCOMPAS gives, smaller players like ourselves. And look, I know you have some of the biggest in the world as INCOMPAS members too, and they appreciate it in ways that we may not, but the appreciation we have as a small and growing from a small to a mid-sized company I think is dramatic. We need someone other than ourselves and our competitors, fighting it out in the streets with the utility companies, with the municipalities, with the politicians here. We need this done from a top-down perspective, and that's what you and your team deliver. I can't say that it's a one-way street with the top-down approach. I think the combination of creating boundaries and putting some parameters around what the municipalities have to work with is really important. and giving them a guidebook in which they can get started to develop their own policies within the municipalities is really important. One of the things that's happening in New Jersey for us, for instance, we're doing a lot of builds out there. Every town is different, but looking towards frameworks that are developed by others is really important, because they can't all they need some homogenization of the rules of the road for us to build through these municipalities. So that's, Encompass makes a huge difference there, and other industry organizations that are supporting our space are critical to helping us get there. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Ray, for the team at Encompass. We're a mission-focused, purpose-driven organization. We believe in competition. We believe in the critical networks that you're building and deploying, and the service that you provide. So we do want to be your voice and the voice of our other companies, especially right now. And we think that there's a tremendous opportunity. Our whole team at Encompass is working very closely on a bipartisan basis with key leaders in Congress to clear away the barriers for you, to streamline and speed the process of deployment for the E-rate programs, to make sure that it is flexible during this time of crisis. So the hotspots and the Wi-Fi that you're talking about, getting into the equity areas or the low income and the underserved parts of our country, that's going to be very, very important and vital as we go forward. And so we want to do everything we can, not only to meet your company and your customers' needs in the crisis, but really set a framework of a policy, a foundation for future networks, the wired, the wireless, the 5G, the small cells. And so we're proud that you're a company, very proud of the service that you're providing in the city and the surrounding areas. And we want to keep being your advocate. We'd love for you to encourage others to join us in the cause. The more members that we have, the more resources we have to fight the battles that we think are necessary to win the future for our companies. So we're very grateful, and I appreciate all your time today. I know this is a busy time. So thank you again, Ray, for joining.
Appreciate the opportunity, Chip. Thank you.